I erased them from their own minds while they were still laughing at my jokes. The wine glasses catch the morning light as I dry them, each one spotless, each one a witness to what happened 3 hours ago. Emily's lipstick left a faint coral crescent on the rim of hers. I scrub it away with methodical precision, watching the color disappear like everything else about her will soon disappear. The house feels different now. Not empty. Emptiness implies something was taken away. This feels clean, sterilized, like a hospital room after the patient has been transferred to somewhere they can't hurt themselves anymore. I set the glasses in the cabinet, each one aligned perfectly with the others. Habit. Order has always been my sanctuary, even when chaos lived and breathed and betrayed under my own roof. Especially then. My phone buzzes against the granite countertop. A text from the facility, patient secured. Initial evaluation complete. Both subjects showing expected cognitive displacement. Will provide updates per our arrangement. Subjects. Not Emily and Ryan anymore. Not my wife and brother, just cases to be managed. I delete the message and pour myself coffee from the pot I made for one. The silence is profound. No whispered phone calls from the bedroom. No hushed conversations that stop. When I enter a room, no more pretending I don't see the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. But I was always watching. That's what they never understood about me. Emily thought grief had made me blind, distant, emotionally unavailable. Ryan thought intelligence was the same as weakness, that calculation meant hesitation. They were both wrong. The hardest part wasn't getting the compound. Money opens doors, connections open others, and desperation opens doors that should stay locked forever. The hardest part wasn't the planning, the forged documents, the careful calibration of dosages and timing. The hardest part was watching them forget their own names while still remembering mine. 6 months earlier. The blueprint spread across my desk like a surgical diagram, clean lines, precise measurements, every angle calculated to perfection. This is what I do, what I've always done. I take chaos and impose order on it, transform empty lots into structures that will outlast the people who commission them. Lucas, the Morrison project needs your signature. My assistant Jennifer sets the contract beside my coffee cup, careful not to disturb the architectural drawings. She's worked with me for 3 years. She knows I don't like interruptions when I'm designing. I sign without looking up. The pen moves with the same precision as the compass I use to draw perfect circles. Everything in my world has its place, its purpose, its function. At home, the dinner table tells a different story. Emily sits across from me, moving her fork through the pasta. I made penne arrabbiata her favorite, but she's not eating. She's staring out the window at our backyard, where the swing set still stands, even though Sarah will never use it again. 3 years since the accident, and Emily still sets the table for 3 people. The Hendersons invited us to their anniversary party next weekend. I say, cutting my chicken breast into precise squares. She doesn't look at me. It might be good, getting out, seeing people. I said, maybe. Her voice carries that edge. It's developed lately, brittle as autumn leaves. Ryan called today. He's thinking about moving back to town. My brother. The one who left for California after college, chasing startup dreams and venture capital fantasies. The one who sends Christmas cards but never visits. The one who missed Sarah's funeral because he was closing an important deal. Did he say why? His company folded. He needs a fresh start. Emily finally looks at me, and for a moment I see something flicker in her eyes. Not sadness, we've lived with sadness for years. Something else. Something that looks almost like anticipation. Over the next 2 weeks, Ryan becomes a frequent topic of conversation. Emily mentions him casually, the way you might mention the weather, But I noticed she started checking her phone more often, started wearing perfume again. Not the vanilla scent I bought her for our anniversary, but something new, something sharper. When he finally arrives, it's a Thursday evening in October. I'm reviewing contracts when Emily calls from the kitchen. "Lucas, come say hello to your brother." Ryan stands in our living room like he belongs there, hands in his pockets, that same cocky smile he's worn since we were teenagers. He's kept himself in shape gym membership written in the lines of his shoulders, the kind of tan that comes from living somewhere the sun actually shines. "Big brother." He extends his hand like we're business associates. "You look good. Successful." I shake his hand. Notice his grip lingers a second too long, like he's measuring my strength. "You look like California agreed with you." For a while. He glances around our home, the hardwood floors. I refinished myself the crown molding I installed room by room, the photographs of Emily and me and Sarah arranged with mathematical precision on the mantelpiece. This place is incredible. Very you. Emily appears with wine glasses, 3 of them on a silver tray. She's changed clothes, traded her yoga pants for a dress I haven't seen in months, applied makeup with an attention to detail that makes my chest tighten. "I thought we could catch up," she says, handing Ryan a glass first. For the next 3 hours, I watch my brother work his charm on my wife. He asks about her book club, remembers details about her pottery classes, from conversations they must have had on the phone. He compliments the dinner she reheated, the wine she opened, the way she's decorated the house. And Emily laughs. Actually laughs, the sound bright and unfamiliar after years of careful silence. "Remember when Lucas got stuck in that tree behind Mom's house?" Ryan says, gesturing with his wine glass. 12 feet up, too scared to climb down. I had to get the ladder. "You pushed me up there in the first place," I remind him. "Details." He winks at Emily. "Point is, I saved the day." She smiles at him. Really smiles, and I feel something cold settle in my stomach. Later, after Ryan leaves for his hotel, I help Emily clear the dishes. She hums, while she loads the dishwasher, the first time I've heard her hum in 3 years. "He's changed," she says without prompting. "Has he? He seems more present, more aware of other people's feelings." I scrape the remains of dinner into the garbage disposal, watching the food disappear into darkness. Ryan's always been good at saying what people want to hear. That's not fair. Maybe not. But fairness is a luxury I stopped believing in the day they pulled Sarah's body from the river. That night, Emily falls asleep before I come to bed. She's lying on her side face, turned toward Sarah's empty room across the hall. Her phone sits on the nightstand screen, dark, but somehow still demanding attention. I listen to her breathing, steady and deep, and try to remember the last time she looked at me the way she looked at Ryan tonight. Try to remember when her laughter belonged to me instead of my brother. In the morning, I find a pressed flower tucked between the pages of Emily's journal, a yellow daisy perfectly preserved. We don't have daisies in our garden. We never have. But I know who does. 2 months later. The flight from Denver lands 3 hours early due to favorable winds. I consider calling Emily, but decide surprise might be better. We haven't spoken much during this business trip, just polite texts about groceries and utilities, the domestic maintenance that keeps a marriage functioning on autopilot. I drive through neighborhoods where I've designed half the houses past landmarks that measure the distance between who I was and who I've become. The closer I get to home, the more my chest tightens with something I don't want to name. Ryan's car sits in my driveway, not parked on the street like a visitor. In the driveway next to Emily's Honda, like he belongs there, like he lives there. I park at the curb and sit in my car for 30 seconds, hands gripping the steering wheel. There could be innocent explanations. Emergency, family crisis. Maybe he's helping with something around the house. But innocence is another luxury I've learned to live without. The front door is unlocked. Emily never leaves the front door unlocked, not since Sarah. I step into my own home like I'm trespassing, moving through the hallway, with the careful quiet of someone who doesn't want to be discovered. Their voices drift from my office, the room where I keep my blueprints, my awards, the mahogany desk that belonged to my father. Emily's laughter rings clear and bright, followed by Ryan's deeper chuckle. I move closer, each step deliberate and silent. "Can't keep doing this," Emily is saying, but her tone doesn't match the words. She sounds breathless, exhilarated. "Why not?" Ryan's voice smooth as aged whiskey. "You deserve to feel alive, Em. When's the last time he made you feel anything?" The nickname hits like a physical blow. Em. I've called her Emily for 15 years, even during our most intimate moments. Em belongs to childhood friends and college roommates, not to my brother. It's not that simple. A rustling sound, papers being moved, or clothes being adjusted. "He's not a bad man, Ryan. He's just dead inside," Ryan finishes. "Has been since the funeral. You've been grieving alone for 3 years while he buried himself in blueprints and right angles." I lean against the wall outside my office, feeling like an intruder in my own life. "Sometimes I forget he's even there," Emily says, and the words slice through me with surgical precision. Like he's become invisible, a ghost haunting his own house. "You're not invisible to me." Ryan's voice has dropped to that register he used with girls in high school, the tone that promised secrets and rebellion. "You never have been." More rustling. A sound that could be fabric, could be skin against skin. Then Emily's voice, smaller now. "What if he comes home early?" "He won't. Lucas is nothing if not predictable. Denver flight lands at 8:15, 40-minute drive. He'll walk through that door at 9 on the dot." Pause. "Besides, would it matter if he did? You think he'd actually fight for you?" "Don't." But Emily's protest lacks conviction. "I'm serious, Em. When's the last time he showed passion about anything except those architectural drawings? When's the last time he looked at you like you were the most important thing in the room?" Silence. Then Emily's voice, barely above a whisper. "He used to. Before Sarah died, he used to look at me like I was his whole world." "That was before. This is now. And now you're here with me in his office, letting me touch you in ways he hasn't in months. Tell me that doesn't mean something." I close my eyes, press my back against the wall, and listen to my marriage disintegrate in real time. "This is crazy," Emily says, but she's still there, still in that room with him. "Crazy is staying married to someone who treats you like furniture. Crazy is wasting your life waiting for a man who's already given up." Ryan's voice moves closer to her. I can hear the shift in acoustics. "You know what's not crazy? Taking what you need. Being happy. Choosing someone who sees you. He's your brother. And you're his wife. But when's the last time either of those things actually mattered to him? The question hangs in the air like incense, thick and suffocating. I want to burst through that door, want to grab Ryan by his perfectly styled hair and demand to know how long this has been happening. Want to ask Emily if she remembers the promises we made, the life we built, the child we lost together. Instead, I back away. Step by silent step, I retreat through my own home until I reach the front door. Outside, I sit in my car and stare at the house where my wife and brother are discussing my emotional unavailability while conducting their affair in the room where I work. The irony isn't lost on me. They're right about my distance, my withdrawal. They're also using it to justify destroying everything I have left. I start the engine and drive to a coffee shop downtown, sit there for 45 minutes drinking espresso and thinking about blueprints. Architectural drawings require precision patience, the ability to see the finished structure before the foundation is poured. By the time I return home, Ryan's car is gone. Emily greets me at the door with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "How was Denver?" she asks, taking my suitcase. "Productive." I kiss her cheek, taste her guilt like copper pennies. "Everything okay here?" "Fine." Ryan stopped by earlier. He's having trouble with his apartment lease. I told him we'd help however we can. The lie comes so easily, it's almost impressive. 3 years of marriage counseling after Sarah died, and Emily has become fluent in deception. "Of course," I say. "Family helps family." That night she falls asleep with her phone clutched in her hand. I wait until her breathing deepens, then carefully extract the device and scroll through her messages. The thread with Ryan goes back weeks, months. Long conversations that start innocent and spiral into intimacy plans disguised as casual suggestions, emoji combinations that would make a teenager blush. The most recent exchange from this afternoon: "Ryan, can't stop thinking about you." "Emily, we can't keep doing this." "Ryan, meet me tomorrow, the cabin. We need to talk." "Emily, what if someone sees us?" "Ryan, no one goes there this time of year, just us." "Emily, okay, but this has to be the last time." "Ryan, sure, Em, the last time." I set the phone back in her palm and lie awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and planning something that has nothing to do with architecture. That night, I didn't plan revenge. I researched it. The first surveillance camera cost me $300 and 20 minutes to install in the living room light fixture. The second one goes in the bedroom, hidden inside an innocuous picture frame on the dresser. By the end of the week, I have eyes on every room where my wife and brother might continue their demolition of my life. I watch from my office at night laptop screen divided into perfect rectangles showing different angles of my home. Emily moves through the house like a stranger, talking on the phone in corners she thinks are private, standing at windows with a smile that belongs to someone else. The audio feeds are worse than the video. "I can't stop thinking about yesterday," she tells him during one late-night call, her voice soft and breathless. "The way you looked at me when—" I mute the feed and close the laptop. Some intelligence is a burden rather than a gift. The financial records tell their own story. Emily has been making regular cash withdrawals for 2 months, always $200, always on Tuesdays, always from the ATM near Ryan's temporary apartment. When I track our joint credit card, I find charges at restaurants I've never been to, hotels in neighboring towns, lingerie purchases from shops that cater to women looking to reinvent themselves. But it's the memorial account that breaks something inside me. Sarah's college fund, the money we'd been saving since she was born, the $37,000 we converted into a memorial scholarship after the accident, has been steadily drained. 500 here, 1,000 there, all authorized by Emily's signature. The account that was supposed to keep our daughter's memory alive has been funding their affair. I print out the statements and spread them across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. Each withdrawal represents another betrayal, another layer of disrespect. They're not just destroying our marriage, they're desecrating our child's legacy to pay for their pleasure. The research begins innocently enough. I tell myself I'm just exploring options, investigating possibilities. I start with divorce lawyers, community property laws, custody arrangements that don't matter because we have no children left to fight over. Then I discover Ryan has been more calculating than I initially realized. Hidden in Emily's browser history, I find searches for emotional abuse, narcissistic husband, signs of psychological manipulation. Someone has been coaching her to reframe our marriage, to see my grief-induced distance as evidence of systematic control. The text messages between them reveal the full scope of his manipulation. Ryan, classic emotional withholding. He's training you to believe you don't deserve affection. Emily, but he wasn't always like this. Ryan, abusers are never abusive 24/7. That's how they keep you hooked. You remember the good times and blame yourself for the bad ones. Emily, I never thought of it that way. Ryan, because you're not twisted like he is. You still believe in love. My brother has weaponized psychology against me, turned Emily's grief and confusion into ammunition for his conquest. This isn't about love or passion or even simple lust. This is about winning, about taking what belongs to me because he spent his entire life believing he deserves everything I have. The real breakthrough comes when I hack his cloud storage. Ryan has been documenting everything. Photos of Emily when she doesn't know he's watching. Screenshots of their conversations. Videos taken through our bedroom window. My bedroom window showing Emily alone, vulnerable, unaware she's being watched. But the worst discovery is a folder labeled Insurance Policy. Inside, I find audio recordings of our private conversations. Emily and me discussing our marriage problems, my struggles with depression after Sarah's death, my admission that sometimes I think about ending everything. Ryan has been recording us through Emily's phone, collecting evidence of my emotional instability. The plan becomes clear when I find his Google searches: life insurance, double indemnity, suicide investigation procedures. How long before missing person declared dead? He's not just stealing my wife. He's positioning himself to inherit my life insurance policy after I conveniently disappear or break down completely. Emily would be the grieving widow, Ryan would be the supportive brother-in-law, and together, they'd have access to my assets without the messy complications of divorce proceedings. That night, I sit in my office, surrounded by evidence of their betrayal and my brother's sociopathy, and I realize forgiveness isn't an option. Neither is traditional revenge. Ryan is too smart, too careful, too willing to destroy Emily in the process of destroying me. But I'm smarter. While he's been studying psychology to manipulate her, I've been studying chemistry. While he's been planning my emotional breakdown, I've been researching compounds that don't appear on standard toxicology screens. While he's been documenting my decline, I've been designing something more elegant than murder. The dark web is easier to navigate than people imagine, especially if you have cryptocurrency and legitimate scientific curiosity. The vendor I contact specializes in research chemicals for academic purposes, a thin veneer of legality over substances that exist in the gray areas between medicine and poison. The compound I order was originally developed for interrogation purposes, a neurotoxin that doesn't kill, but temporarily disrupts memory formation and retention. In controlled doses, subjects experience confusion, disorientation, and gradual short-term memory loss. In higher doses, the effects become permanent. The beauty of it is the symptoms mimic early-onset dementia, especially in subjects under psychological stress. Medical professionals would diagnose cognitive decline, recommend psychiatric evaluation, suggest long-term care facilities. I practice the dosage on lab mice I acquire through veterinary contacts. The results are precise, complete memory disruption within 48 hours, personality fragmentation within 72. The subjects remain physically healthy but psychologically erased, like hard drives wiped clean and left blank. Perfect. I spend 3 weeks forging medical documents, creating false psychiatric histories, establishing financial relationships with a private care facility in Switzerland. The kind of place that specializes in wealthy families' embarrassing problems, where patients disappear into comfort and anonymity. Emily thinks she's planning a future with Ryan. Ryan thinks he's orchestrating my destruction. Neither of them realizes they're about to become case studies in the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Some lies deserve erasure, not from the world, but from the self. I realize I didn't want them dead. I wanted them to disappear from themselves. Present day. The cabin sits 40 miles from civilization, surrounded by pine trees that swallow sound and snowdrifts that erase footprints. I bought this place after Sarah died, thinking Emily and I might heal here together. Instead, It became the sanctuary, where she and Ryan planned their future without me. How perfectly fitting that it should be where their future ends. I arrived 2 hours before them, using the back road that doesn't appear on GPS systems. The compound sits in a thermos in my jacket pocket, colorless, odorless, tasteless when mixed properly. 3 months of research distilled into 30 milliliters of liquid amnesia. The wine waits in the cellar, a 2015 Bordeaux I've been saving for a special occasion. Tonight seems special enough. I've already added the compound to 2 glasses, calculated the precise dosage, based on their body weights and metabolic rates. Emily gets the lighter dose. I still remember loving her once. Ryan gets enough to erase a lifetime. Their car crunches through snow at exactly 7:30. Ryan drives naturally. He's been driving their relationship since it began, steering Emily away from me with the same confidence he's always had behind the wheel. I watch through the kitchen window as he helps her from the passenger seat, hand lingering on her waist in a gesture of ownership. She's wearing the red coat I bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, the one she said made her feel beautiful. Now it makes me feel sick. They approach the cabin like conspirators, heads bent together, sharing some private joke at my expense. Emily's laughter carries across the snow, bright and musical, and entirely foreign to the woman who's barely spoken to me in months. I open the door before they can knock. Right on time. I step aside to let them enter, noting how they move together, synchronized as dancers. I was starting to worry about the roads. Lucas. Ryan shakes my hand with that firm grip that's supposed to communicate authority. Thanks for suggesting this. Em and I have been worried about you. Em. He uses her nickname like a brand, marking his territory. Have you... I help Emily with her coat, notice the new perfume again. Something expensive and sharp. I appreciate the concern. The cabin feels smaller with all 3 of us inside the walls, pressing closer as we navigate the careful choreography of pretense. Emily examines the living room like she's never been here before, though I know she and Ryan have used this place for their encounters at least 6 times in the past 2 months. It's beautiful, she says, touching the mantelpiece where our family photos used to be. I removed them last week, no point in having witnesses to what comes next. I thought we could have dinner, talk things through like adults. I gesture toward the dining room where I've set the table with our wedding china, another small irony. I've made peace with some things lately, about us, about the future. Ryan and Emily exchange a look quick as a heartbeat but loaded with meaning. They think I'm going to make this easy for them, that I've accepted their betrayal, and I'm ready to step aside gracefully. That's mature of you, Ryan says carefully. Maturity comes with age and perspective. I open the Bordeaux with practiced ease, the cork emerging with a soft pop. I've realized some truths about myself lately, about what I can and can't control. I pour 3 glasses, making sure each person gets the right one. The compound is invisible in the dark wine, undetectable to any sense except the one that counts. A toast, I say, raising my glass. Emily and Ryan lift theirs, still playing their parts in our domestic theater. To family, to truth, to getting what we deserve. We drink. The wine is excellent. I've always had good taste in Bordeaux. Emily smiles as she swallows the first genuine smile I've seen from her in months. Ryan nods appreciatively, already planning how he'll redecorate this place once I'm out of the picture. Neither of them notices anything unusual about the wine. Why would they? They trust me in their way. I'm predictable. Lucas, grieving Lucas, emotionally unavailable. Lucas, who would never do anything dramatic or dangerous. Dinner passes in civilized conversation. Emily talks about her book club. Ryan mentions his job prospects. I discuss a new project downtown. We could be any family gathering around a table, sharing food and stories, and comfortable silences. Except Emily starts losing her train of thought halfway through describing her pottery class. I was making this vase, or maybe it was a bowl. She pauses, fork suspended over her salmon. What was I saying? Pottery? Ryan prompts, but his own voice sounds slightly slurred. Right. Pottery. She blinks slowly, like someone trying to clear fog from their vision. It's strange I can't quite remember what I was making. I refill their wine glasses, careful to serve from the bottle that hasn't been doctored. Sometimes it's hard to focus when you're relaxed. This place has that effect on people. Ryan rubs his temples. Must be the altitude. I feel a little fuzzy. The cabin's at 8,000 feet. I lie smoothly. We're barely above sea level, but they won't remember the drive here well enough to contradict me. Takes some getting used to. By the time we reach dessert chocolate cake from Emily's favorite bakery, they're both struggling to maintain conversation. Emily stares at her reflection in the dark window, confused by her own face. Ryan keeps asking the same questions, forgetting he's already asked them. I think... Emily's voice trails off. She looks at me with eyes that seem to be seeing me from a great distance. I think I need to lie down. Of course. I stand and help her to her feet, noting how she leans heavily on my arm. The bedroom's upstairs. You remember the bedroom, don't you, Emily? She nods uncertainly, though I doubt she remembers much of anything at this point. Ryan tries to follow, but his coordination is shot. He grabs the back of his chair for support, blinking rapidly like someone trying to boot up a crashed computer. What did you... He starts the question, but can't finish it, the words dissolving, before they reach his tongue. I help him to the couch, arranging his body with the same care I'd show a piece of furniture. What Ryan... He looks at me with dawning confusion, then fear, then something worse than fear. The horrifying realization that he can't quite remember why he should be afraid. Who are you? I sit across from him, wine glass in hand, and watch my brother forget his own name. I'm Lucas, I tell him gently. Your brother? We're having dinner together. Remember, you and Emily came to visit. Emily? He looks around the room like he's never seen it before. Who's Emily? From upstairs comes the sound of crying, soft, confused weeping. From someone who can't remember why she's sad, but knows something terrible has happened. I stand and raise my glass toward the ceiling, toward the woman who used to be my wife. To forgetting everything, I say quietly, except what you've done. They tried to run. But you can't run from your own dissolving mind. The next 48 hours unfold like a carefully choreographed ballet of psychological destruction. I document everything. My phone captures Emily sitting on the bedroom floor trying to remember her own middle name. She repeats Sarah over and over, but can't recall if it's her daughter's name or her sister's, or just a word that feels important. The recording shows her fingers tracing invisible letters in the air, spelling out a life she can no longer access. Ryan fares worse. His personality fragments first, the arrogance dissolving like sugar in water, leaving behind a confused child in a man's body. He asks me repeatedly if we're brothers, if we're friends, if he's supposed to know me. Each time I answer differently, and each time he accepts the new information as truth. Are you my doctor? He asks on hour 36, staring at the notebook where I've been tracking their deterioration. Yes, I tell him. I'm here to help you remember. Remember what? That's what we're working on. The beauty of the compound is its precision. Physical functions remain intact. They can walk, eat, perform basic tasks. But identity dissolves layer by layer like sediment washing away from a riverbank. First, go the recent memories, then personal relationships, then core beliefs about who they are. Emily finds me in the kitchen on the second morning wearing yesterday's clothes and yesterday's confusion. "I think I'm supposed to be somewhere," she says, voice small and lost. "But I can't remember where." "You're exactly where you need to be," I tell her, handing her coffee in a mug that says, "World's Best Mom." She stares at it like it's written in a foreign language. Am I a mother? The question hits harder than I expect. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. "You were," I say quietly. She nods and accepts this information the way she's accepted everything else, as fact without context, truth without meaning. "The woman who betrayed me with my brother, who spent our dead daughter's memorial fund on hotel rooms and lingerie, has been reduced to someone who can't remember having a child at all. By hour 40, neither of them can dress themselves properly. They need guidance for the simplest tasks, using the bathroom, finding their way to the kitchen, recognizing their own reflections. I lead them through each day like a caretaker, managing particularly helpless patients. The drive to the airport requires careful planning. I've rented a medical transport van, complete with wheelchair accessibility and privacy windows. To any observer, I'm a devoted family member caring for two people suffering from severe neurological decline. Emily sits quietly in the passenger seat, occasionally asking where we're going. Each time I tell her we're visiting a special doctor, and each time she nods with childlike trust. Ryan sleeps in the back, sedated with mild tranquilizers I've added to his breakfast. The private jet cost me $40,000, but money has become irrelevant. What's the point of wealth if you have no one left to share it with? What's the point of success if everyone you loved has either died or betrayed you? At 30,000 feet, crossing the Atlantic toward Switzerland, Emily stares out the window at clouds that stretch to infinity. "It's beautiful," she says, and for a moment, she sounds like the woman I married. "Yes, it is." "Are we going on vacation?" "Something like that." The Bergman Institute sits in the Swiss Alps like a fortress of white stone and clean glass. Dr. Helena Rice meets us at the entrance, her expression professionally compassionate. As she reviews the medical files, I've provided carefully forged documents indicating severe early-onset dementia complicated by acute psychological trauma. "The deterioration appears rapid," she says in accented English, observing Emily's vacant stare and Ryan's confused mumbling. "It happened very suddenly," I explain. "A family tragedy triggered something. They've been declining for weeks." Dr. Rice nods knowingly. Trauma can accelerate neurological conditions. We see this occasionally, the mind protecting itself by forgetting everything, including how to function. Emily is assigned to the East Wing, a comfortable suite with mountain views and 24-hour nursing care. The staff speaks to her gently, patiently, as they help her into hospital clothes and explain the daily routine she'll follow for the rest of her life. "What's your name, dear?" a nurse asks during intake. Emily stares at her hands for a long moment. I don't know. Should I know? "Don't worry about it now. We'll help you remember." But they won't. The compound's effects are permanent at the dosage I administered. Emily will spend her remaining years in comfortable confusion, cared for by professionals who believe they're treating a tragic medical condition. Ryan's placement requires more delicate handling. His files indicate violent tendencies during episodes of disorientation, a complete fabrication, but necessary to justify the higher security measures. He's assigned to the West Wing, where patients who might harm themselves or others receive more intensive supervision. This man keeps asking about someone named Lucas, the orderly mentions during his orientation. Says Lucas did something to him, but he can't remember what. Dr. Rice makes a note in his chart. Paranoid ideation is common with this type of cognitive decline. He may fixate on imaginary threats or conspiracies. We'll monitor it carefully. I watch through a window as they help Ryan into his new room, bare walls, soft furniture locks on the outside of the door. He sits on the bed and stares at nothing, occasionally muttering words that once held meaning, but now float free from context, like debris from a shipwreck. The financial arrangements are elegant in their simplicity. I've established a trust fund that will cover their care, indefinitely managed by a Swiss banking firm that specializes in medical anonymity. As far as the world knows, Emily and Ryan suffered simultaneous nervous breakdowns and were placed in private care at their family's request. No one will look for them. No one will ask questions. They've simply disappeared into their own minds. On my final evening in Switzerland, I visit Emily one last time. She's sitting by her window, humming a tune I don't recognize, or maybe she doesn't recognize it either. The melody is broken notes arranged in patterns that once meant something, but now exist just as sound. "Hello," she says, when I enter, polite as a child meeting a stranger. "Hello, Emily." "Is that my name, Emily?" She tests the word like she's learning a new language. "It sounds familiar." "Yes, that's your name. Menti." She nods and returns to her humming, staring out at mountains that stretch beyond memory, beyond regret, beyond the reach of consequences. I leave Switzerland with 2 fewer people in my life and 2 more ghosts in my conscience. The beautiful thing about this drug, they remember the pain, but not why. Back home, I tell people Emily left me for another man, that Ryan disappeared after some kind of breakdown. The story spreads through our social circles with the easy acceptance that greets most personal tragedies, unfortunate but not surprising, given what we've all been through. I return to work, to blueprints and building permits, and the comfortable precision of creating structures that will outlast their architects. At night, I sit in the house where Emily and Ryan once planned their betrayal, surrounded by silence and the satisfaction of perfect revenge. Sometimes I catch myself listening for Emily's laughter or Ryan's voice. Old habits die hard. But then I remember them sitting in that Swiss facility, asking nurses for their own names, and the listening stops. Some lies deserve erasure. Not from the world, but from the self. 3 months later, the guilt comes at 3 a.m. sharp and surgical as a scalpel, slicing through sleep. I wake in the king-sized bed that used to hold 2 people and stare at the ceiling where Emily once traced constellations with her fingertip back when she remembered what stars were called. The house breathes differently now, settled, like a patient whose fever has finally broken. During the day, I function perfectly. I review blueprints, attend client meetings, approve construction schedules. My assistant Jennifer comments that I seem more focused lately, more present. She doesn't know that presence is all I have left. The alternative is remembering what I've done. But the nights are different. In dreams, Emily's voice calls my name from rooms that don't exist. I follow the sound through hallways that stretch and bend like architectural impossibilities, always finding empty spaces where she should be. Sometimes she's singing that broken lullaby from the Swiss facility. Sometimes she's laughing with Ryan about something I can't understand. I wake from these dreams with my heart racing and her perfume in my nostrils, not the sharp new scent she wore for my brother, but the vanilla fragrance from our anniversary, the one that smelled like home and happiness and everything I destroyed. The mail brings updates from Dr. Rice every 2 weeks. Clinical reports disguised as family correspondence. Emily's condition remains stable. She's adjusted well to the routine shows. No signs of distress, continues to require full-time assistance with basic activities. The staff has taught her to paint watercolors. Apparently, she has some natural ability, though she can't remember ever painting before. Ryan's reports are less encouraging. He experiences episodes of agitation, moments where he seems to remember being someone else. He asks for Lucas repeatedly, though he can't explain who Lucas is or why he wants to see him. The doctors have increased his medication to manage what they call delusional fixation on an imaginary persecution complex. I should feel satisfaction reading these updates. This is what I wanted: their complete erasure, their reduction to case studies in cognitive decline. Instead, I feel something that might be regret if I let myself name it properly. The problem with perfect revenge is that it leaves you perfectly alone. Our mutual friends handle the situation with the delicate awkwardness that surrounds other people's tragedies. They invite me to dinner parties where Emily's empty chair becomes a third presence at every table. They ask careful questions about my healing process and offer support that feels more like pity. "Have you thought about dating?" asks Margaret Chen, whose husband designed the Morrison Project with me. We're at their annual barbecue, surrounded by couples who've managed to keep their marriages intact. "It might be good for you to meet someone new." I consider telling her that I'm not widowed or divorced, that my wife exists in a Swiss facility where she asks nurses if her own reflection looks familiar. Instead, I smile and say, "I'm not ready yet." "Of course," Margaret nods sympathetically. These things take time. But time is the one thing I can't control, the one variable I didn't account for in my calculations. Time that allows guilt to ferment. Time that transforms satisfaction into something more complicated and less comfortable. 6 months pass, then 8, then 10. I find myself researching experimental treatments for memory disorders, scanning medical journals for breakthrough therapies that might reverse neurological damage. Not because I want Emily and Ryan back. That bridge collapsed the moment I heard them planning my destruction, but because I'm starting to understand the difference between justice and cruelty, between punishment and torture. They betrayed me. They used our daughter's memory as currency for their affair. They planned my emotional and financial destruction with the casual efficiency of a business transaction. They deserved consequences. But did they deserve erasure? The question haunts my perfectly ordered house, echoes through rooms where their ghosts whisper accusations I can't quite dismiss. I built my revenge like an architectural project, precise, permanent, structurally sound. But buildings can be renovated. Lives once erased offer no blueprints for reconstruction. On a Tuesday morning in December, exactly 1 year after I first discovered their affair, my phone rings with an international number I recognize. Dr. Rice's voice carries across the Atlantic with news that makes my coffee cup slip from nerveless fingers. "Mr. Reed, I'm calling about your wife and brother. There's been a development in their conditions, something unexpected. I think you should come to Switzerland as soon as possible." "Yeah." The line goes quiet, except for the sound of my heartbeat and the clock on the kitchen wall, the same clock that measured the seconds while Emily and Ryan discussed my emotional unavailability, the same timepiece that counted down the hours as their memories dissolved. "What kind of development?" I ask, though part of me already knows the answer will change everything. "They're remembering Mr. Reed. Not everything, and not clearly, but they're starting to remember." I got exactly what I wanted, and it was nothing like I thought. 2 days later, Bergman Institute, Switzerland. The facility looks different in winter, starker, more institutional beneath its blanket of fresh snow. Dr. Rice meets me at the entrance with the careful expression of someone delivering news that will reshape everything you thought you knew. "The memory restoration began 3 weeks ago," she explains as we walk through corridors that smell of antiseptic and artificial warmth. "It started with fragments Emily asking for someone named Sarah Ryan, becoming agitated when he heard certain names on the television. We thought it was random neural firing synapses misfiring, as they sometimes do with this type of damage." She stops outside a reinforced door marked with Ryan's room number. Through the observation window, I see my brother sitting at a small table, sketching something with intense concentration. "Then this happened." She hands me a piece of paper covered in Ryan's handwriting, shaky but recognizable. The page is filled with the same phrase written over and over in increasingly frantic script: "Lucas poisoned us. Lucas poisoned us. Lucas poisoned us. My mouth goes dry. That's impossible. The compound doesn't work that way. Memory formation should be completely disrupted. Unless the trauma was significant enough to burn itself into deeper neural pathways, Dr. Rice interrupts. Mr. Reed, what exactly happened to these people? Because what we're seeing suggests they experienced severe psychological shock immediately before their cognitive decline. I stare through the window at Ryan, watching him sketch what appears to be a floor plan. With growing horror, I realize he's drawing the cabin, our family cabin, where I served them wine and watched their minds dissolve. I need to see Emily. Her room is in the east wing behind a door that remains unlocked because Emily has never shown aggressive tendencies. She sits by the window, watercolor brushes arranged on a tray beside her, working on a painting that makes my knees weak. It's our daughter. Not photorealistic, but unmistakably Sarah, the round face, the dark curls, the gap-toothed smile that lit up every room she entered. Emily has been painting our dead child from memory she wasn't supposed to have. "Hello?" Emily says, without looking up from her canvas. Her voice is different now, not the confused whisper of the woman I left here, but something harder. Focused. "I've been waiting for you." The words hit like ice water. "Emily?" She sets down her brush and turns to face me. Her eyes are clear, not the vacant stare of someone lost in cognitive fog, but the sharp gaze of someone who's found her way back from a very dark place. "That's my name, isn't it, Emily Reed? Married to Lucas Reed for 15 years, mother to Sarah Reed, who died in a drowning accident 3 years ago?" She tilts her head, studying me with clinical interest. "Wife to the man who erased my mind because I fell in love with his brother." The room spins. This isn't possible. The compound was permanent. The neurological damage was irreversible. I researched it for months, tested it on dozens of subjects. "You can't remember," I whisper. The drug worked exactly as you intended," Emily says calmly. "For almost a year I existed in a fog so thick I couldn't remember my own name." But trauma has a way of burning through chemistry, doesn't it? The mind protects what it needs to survive. She stands and walks to her dresser, opens the top drawer, and pulls out a notebook. When she hands it to me, I see pages and pages of handwriting journal entries in her careful script, dates going back months. Day 47, had a dream about a little girl with dark hair. Felt important. Day 63, asked the nurse about the man in the photograph, my husband. She says his name is Lucas. Why don't I remember him? Day 89. Ryan was here today. I know his name now, know he's important. Know something terrible happened. Day 134. Remembered the cabin, remembered the wine, remembered the way Lucas smiled when we started forgetting. I flipped through pages of recovered memory fragments, assembling themselves into a complete picture of my betrayal and revenge. The handwriting becomes steadier, with each entry more confident as Emily rebuilt herself from psychological rubble. The beautiful thing about the human mind, Emily says, is that it always finds a way to remember what matters. Love, loss, betrayal. The things that define us burn deeper than chemistry can reach. A knock at the door interrupts us. Dr. Rice enters with 2 orderlies flanking a wheelchair. In it sits Ryan. Not the confused child I left here, but someone I barely recognize. His hair has gone white, his face drawn and angular, but his eyes burn with an intelligence that should have been impossible. "Hello, brother," he says, and his voice carries the weight of everything he's remembered. The 3 of us sit in Emily's room like survivors of the same shipwreck, each carrying different pieces of the same terrible truth. Emily shows Ryan her journal, her paintings of Sarah, her careful documentation of their psychological resurrection. Ryan shares his sketches, detailed floor plans of the cabin chemical formulas. He's somehow reconstructed legal documents he's been writing in preparation for this moment. The compound you used was experimental. Ryan explains, his voice stronger than it should be after a year of institutional care. But experimental means untested for long-term effects. You assumed memory loss would be permanent, because that's what the research suggested. But research doesn't account for the human will to survive psychological torture. Emily pulls out another painting, this one showing 3 figures around a dinner table, 2 of them dissolving into watercolor fog, while the third watches with clinical detachment. The artistic skill is remarkable, but the subject matter is devastating. "We remember everything now," she says quietly. "The affair, the betrayal, the way we hurt you. But we also remember what you did to us. The months of confusion, the terror of losing ourselves, the horror of existing without identity or memory or hope." I want to defend myself, to explain about the memorial fund, about Ryan's insurance scheme, about the way they discussed my emotional death, like it was already accomplished fact. But sitting in this room with 2 people I psychologically murdered, justification feels obscene. "So what happens now?" I ask. Ryan reaches into his wheelchair bag and pulls out a thick folder of legal documents bearing official seals and signatures. "Now you make a choice. You can confess to what you've done, submit to criminal prosecution for kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit fraud, or..." He slides the documents across to me. Their commitment papers, psychiatric evaluation forms, legal guardianship, transfers, all bearing my signature, though I've never seen them before. "Or you can sign these papers and join us as a patient at this lovely facility. Same treatment you arranged for us, same comfortable isolation from the world, same caring staff who specialize in managing people who've lost their grip on reality." Emily leans forward, her watercolor-stained fingers folding over mine with gentle pressure. "The choice is yours, Lucas. Prison, where your crimes will be public record, and you'll spend decades surrounded by people who know what you did. Or here, where you can disappear into the same fog you created for us." I stare at the papers, at my own forged signature, authorizing my commitment to a psychiatric facility for treatment of severe delusional disorders and dangerous antisocial behavior. The irony is perfect. I'm being offered the same escape from reality I forced on them. "There's a third option," Ryan adds quietly. "The truth. All of it. Public testimony about what we did to each other, what you did to us, what we've all become because of it. Let the world decide who deserves what." The room falls silent except for the sound of snow against windows and the quiet hum of institutional heating. 3 damaged people in a sterile room, each holding pieces of the other's destruction, each certain of their own victimhood and the other's guilt. I look at Emily, seeing not the confused patient I abandoned here, but the woman I loved before grief and betrayal poisoned everything between us. I look at Ryan, recognizing not the manipulative sociopath I erased, but the brother I grew up with before jealousy and competition destroyed our family. And I see myself reflected in their eyes, not the methodical architect of perfect revenge I thought I'd become, but something more complicated and more human. Someone who transformed justified anger into calculated cruelty, who confused justice with torture, who became a monster while believing he was evening the scales. "What do you want?" I ask them both. Emily picks up her paintbrush, dips it in blue watercolor, and adds another layer to her portrait of Sarah. "I want my daughter back. I want the 3 years of grief we never processed together. I want the marriage we might have saved if we'd chosen healing over revenge." Ryan closes his legal folder and sets it aside. "I want to undo the last 2 years. I want to take back the affair, the manipulation, the insurance scheme. I want to be your brother again, instead of your enemy." They both look at me, waiting for an answer I don't have. Outside, snow continues to fall on mountains that have witnessed human folly for millennia and will witness it for millennia more. Inside, three people who destroyed each other sit in a room where time moves differently, where memory and reality blend, like watercolors bleeding into each other. Sometimes the perfect revenge is forgetting why you wanted it, but sometimes the only redemption is remembering everything and choosing to forgive anyway.